Hello, everybody. What's up now, y'all? Hey, welcome to another edition of the Her Hoop Stats podcast right here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast network. I am Christy Winters Scott, joined this week by my dog right there, Brittany Carper. And Brittany, man, this week, I know your name is Brittany, and I know I'm not a cusser, but there's that song, I guess, or whatever. It's Brittany B. Like this week has just seemed like that energy all over the place for the league and for everything else for that matter. Anyway, but I digress. Back to hoops. But with what the league has presented, you've seen survival of the fittest. And you've also seen the fittest not surviving with Minnesota and Vegas losing and the Valkyries sitting in the weeds like, hey, y'all, we're out here winning. What have you seen specifically with those three teams? And on any given night, teams can be beaten, or any given night, teams can ascend like Golden State has been doing.
Yeah, well, I just think that's the kind of motto of the league. Expect the unexpected this season, especially. With everything that happened in the offseason, you had so many players move. You had more teams that kind of had all-star caliber players or new roles on teams. And so you're kind of seeing the ascension of some of those middle pack teams that are climbing. And the Golden State Valkyries are a team that we know took everybody by surprise last year. And so coming into this year, it was, could they repeat that? And they're sitting at 15-7 saying, hey, we're repeating and we're right here. I thought this road trip was going to be really interesting for them, that they started their 2-0. And what I will say, and as well as anybody, we love offense, but defense carries. And no matter where you go, you obviously got to see that up close and personal last night in a low-scoring affair. But that's the way the Valkyries want to play. And so I think obviously they've been very fortunate, no injuries, knock on wood, so to speak, to some of their star players where, the aces, the Lynx, they've been tripped up by that, or in the Lynx case, still missing Nafisa Collier. I just think the Valkyries are a team that they understand their identity, and no matter what night, they're going to go out there and enforce that.
Yeah, no question about it. And you're right. I saw it up close and personal, specifically in the second half in DC last night, with Washington being third best in paint points in the WNBA going into that game, 42 points on average. But the Valkyries first in the WNBA, taking the paint away, only giving up 31 points. The Mystics had 30 paint points. So they took away the strength that Washington has been utilizing all season long, right? But you're also looking at this Golden State team, Brittany, that is second best in the WNBA in terms of their defensive rating overall. So it's not, obviously they're taking the paint away, but I thought they did a good job with either the matchup zone. Just schematically, just putting a lot of pressure on the perimeter. And that's what Natalie Nakase told us prior to the game. She said, we may have an undersized starting five outside of Stokes. We're kind of all 6 foot, and maybe Veronica Burton, maybe a skosh under that. But they're all pretty much, there's no 6'5s and 6'6s across the board, like Shakira Austin. And you have Lauren Betts coming off the bench at 6'7". So, they presented a lot of size there. And that was the question I posed was, with them attacking the paint like that and your team being undersized, what's the key for you guys defensively, or what do you want to take away? Or how do you kind of morph that into what works well for you? And she said, we've got to apply pressure on the basketball and not let them just throw it in there. And I was like, there you go. And it sounded very Pat Summitt-esque to me, with regards to putting pressure on the basketball. They cannot make the play they cannot see. And I just remember hearing Pat Summitt say that when she was coaching at Tennessee and everything. And I just think that is such a key component. I think that gets lost sometimes. Like, even when I was coaching, it's like, man, we're facing this bigger team, or we have the bigger team. Like, how are we going to do that on both sides? And I thought they did a really good job of putting pressure on the perimeter, turning Washington over, whether it was live ball or dead ball. But I thought their defensive pressure on the passes is what has gotten them over the hump the last two games against Atlanta and Washington in that regard. And in their 15 wins, I think their defense has been pretty darn good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, because they are a little undersized across the board, they use their quickness and athleticism in the paint to, kind of slip those angles, because we all know post play is about that. There's a couple times, it looked like Lauren Betts had a great seal, or Shakira Austin, and they're kind of so slippery in there that they're able to get their hands on a lot of balls. But I also think what really is tough about the Valkyries to prepare for is, if you look at that roster, they played 10 players. The least amount of minutes was 12. Letitia and me here played 12. Okay. So you're looking at 10 players across the board. Not one person that started was in double figures. You had Caitlin Chen off the bench with 14. So when you're watching that, talk about how tough that is for an opponent to prepare for a team like the Valkyries. On any given night, you have no idea who's going to step up and score for them.
Yeah, and speaking of that bench, right? Their bench production is first in the league, or it was before last night's game, 43 points on average. So 41% of their offense is manufactured from their bench. And it could be, like you said, I mean, it's any given night, we said, is kind of the theme of what we're discussing today across the league. But with the Valkyries, it's any given night, because anybody could pop off for, 14 or 20 off the bench or something like that. So it is tough to scout for. And the way that they play, it's such a freewheeling 5-out motion, roll, replace, pick, slip, screen and ghost, these flare screens, but they stay spaced. But they also lead the league in 3-point attempts, 31 attempts from beyond the arc per game. And then they knock in about 11. So to lead the league also. So not only do they space you out and pull up triples in transition, which was very filthy at times. I was like, dang, you just walk right into that three like that. Goodness gracious. But they were very aggressive, right? And they're going to seek you out. They're going to challenge you to be present and in position defensively, whether that's at the cup or at the 3-point line in transition. So they got a lot of threes up. But for me, it's been their bench. And that makes it tough because, like you said, you don't know what to take away, because every other night it's somebody different in a different way, right? It could be from three. It could be, like Caitlin Chen last night. I thought she was absolutely amazing in the mid range. Like her float on game was like that. Like she was getting right to the lane line and lifting those floaters up. So, it wasn't just the 3-point shooting prowess, which they are excellent with, but it was also their ability to, go with who was clicking. And those 14 points off the bench, it was her night. So I don't think they got up to 43 bench points, but I still think, Amihir came in. It felt like she played more than 12 minutes. I mean, you felt the impact of their bench players and the way that they play stylistically on the offensive end, very European style, and the way that they play defense is all out, squeezing all the juice out of the orange. So when they're playing like that, their rotations are more quick, right?
Yep.
So when they're rotating more players in and out so that they can keep that focus and that energy on the defensive end. So there's no fatigue layover in terms of the focus. Like, I'm tired, I couldn't get over there. No, we just subbed you in to be able to get there on time. And so I think that's part of their magic as well, is that they stay fresh, go deep into the bench. And then now it's tough to scout that.
Yeah, I agree completely on all of that. What do you like from the Mystic standpoint? What were you seeing last night? Like, we know they're sitting at 500. They're a team that's kind of been up and down. We've talked a ton about the youth and kind of into that second year of the youth movement. What are you seeing from them that could make it more of a consistent approach for them?
Yeah, I think, 3 games without Sony Citron is not fun.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
injuries, I hate injuries. But I think she really, she makes so many different things happen. And I'm not just talking about her ability to score, right? Especially in clutch time. Like, we know that about Sony Citron, but I think it's all the intangible things that she brings to the court. And I'm not using that as an excuse, because they won without Sony, but, they had to win in a different way, obviously, without her impact on the court. So what have I seen? I've seen an inexperienced team, right? And I think you're looking at a team that, yes, I said this, I think, last week on the podcast, that every team has developmental slots, 2 of them per team, but I think they have 12 developmental spots on this team because of their inexperience as being WNBA players. Only Shakira Austin and Michaela Onyenwere they're the only two that have more than 2 years of experience in the league. So they're learning and they're growing. They're going to have the ebbs and flows in that. But I think there's also beauty in that. There's just these hustle plays where Shakira also got a rebound on the floor. Like she was on her knees and was like, give me that, and got the ball out. It's just these really tough-minded plays where they are together with what they're doing. So for me, I mean, I'd like to see them fully whole and continue to ascend.
Yeah.
And to find some consistency, because walking into Brooklyn and beating New York and then going into Minnie and beating the Lynx, that's not an easy statement for any team. But for the most inexperienced team in the league, I think that's pretty darn good. And to get a win without Sony against Atlanta, it was a pretty great team too, even though they hit a little bit of a slide here with wins and losses, but they're a pretty tough team to contend with. So to do that without Sony Citron, I mean, I think that speaks to the up and comingness of the Washington Mystics, but there were so many bright spots, but they just couldn't connect and stack possessions to get over the hump against Valkyries last night.
Yeah, and a tough game, obviously, against the league's defensive leader without her, because, like you said, she does so much on the offensive end, but there's just a key part of her on the other end of the floor as well. So, do we have a timeline on her? Has that really been said, or?
No,
Okay.
day to day is what we've seen, heard. That's what they've put out. Yesterday before the game, it was questionable the day before, and then no,
Okay.
no, obviously no go right beforehand. So, I mean, obviously we've seen that too with like Asia Wilson. I think Becky Hammond said, "Hey, she could play in the Indiana game, but then they had a week off."
Yep.
Right. So she kind of wanted not to rush her back. So I think in essence, with the Mystics not playing until Sunday against Seattle, I think maybe there was, and that's nothing I heard. I'm just saying what Becky Hammond said about Wilson's probably the same line of thinking with Sony Citron, that, hey, there's a whole week, before the next game, just about, 5-6 days where you can really get right and have your body right. So I mean, Asia, I know she wanted to play in that game,
Oh,
especially against her South Carolina compadre with Aaliyah Boston on the other side of that. Come on, man. Oh, I know she was probably sitting there probably pins and needles, but you have to do what's right for your body, and I'm sure Sony felt the same way. Wanted to get out there. I mean, that's what they do. They love it. They're passionate about it. But I hate injuries. But no timetable yet. But hopefully sooner than later. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we know rest is at a premium in the league. So whenever you can get those kind of extra days, and no matter what it looks like for your team, you kind of have to take advantage of that. We were talking about the Aces and Lynx dealing with injuries. The Lynx lost to the Sun at home, without Olivia Miles. They haven't had to play a game without her. And so you're kind of looking at that. How important she's been to this Lynx team. What do you see from both the Lynx and the Aces without their star players in the lineup? Is it something, they'll be back and they'll kind of return to form, or you think they got to show up every night no matter what and hope to come out on top?
Yeah, man, listen, I number one, again, to just reiterate, I hate injuries, but they happen, unfortunately. But when you have a player, we'll just go with Minnesota first with the Lynx, and with Olivia Miles, just, I mean, she's playing with some stoic basketball IQ for a rookie. Right now, I think she's my rookie of the year. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I think everyone's saying that right now just because of her consistency, and how she's been able to step into that role, right? And Cheryl Reeve has just been pouring into her. Lindsay Whalen over there pumping her fist when she does good things on the bench over there as an assistant coach. I just think she's learning, and she's a sponge and just taking it all in. But she's also applying it and executing. And she just has this cold stone, like this, she's just focused to get the job done. So I've been super impressed with her. But when you're missing a player like that who has developed this chemistry, setting you up on the offensive side, whether it's with a no look, he pass, or if it's just with coming down and staying composed and getting into your stuff. I think she was so good for them in that way. So you remove her, and then it's really tough. I know as a coach, I know as a player, it would feel the same way. Kind of like, what's that carnival ride? You're spinning around and the bottom drops out.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
you're on
ones
the
that make you
wall.
sick.
I mean, you're stuck on the wall and everything like that, but your feet are kind of dangling, but you're okay. But you just don't feel as safe, right? You don't
Mm,
trust your surroundings. So I think it reminds me of that. You're out there
mhm.
and you're hooping, and we're going to do our best and star in our individual roles for the team. But boy, we really need the bottom of that carnival ride to be right there for our feet to feel some kind of way in terms of being settled. So I think that's what you're missing with her. But with Wilson, I think it's a little bit different because positions are different. But just listening to Chelsea Gray talk about the absence of Wilson, I mean, I think that told the story. I mean, 4-time MVP for a reason. You're
Right.
missing a key, I don't know, component, key cog, key like player on both sides, not just on the offensive end, but on the defensive end too. Just to be a rim protector and just to be someone to disallow shots in there. So I think it's just different because of the positions, but the impact, and when you miss the impact of players like that who are at an elite level and playing at the top of their game on a consistent basis, I think that's when you really feel it. What do you think on those two and their not being on the court?
Well, I think in case of Minnesota, especially, Miles has the ball in her hands so much for this team. She alleviated the pressure off of Courtney Williams at the point guard spot and really took the reins of that team. And she, they're in so much two-man game with Natasha Howard, and
Right.
and so I feel like that's a really big absence, like you said, just that security and knowing, that she's going to more than likely make the right play because she has shown us through 20 games that more than likely the ball is going to go where it needs to go, where she's going to make the right read at the basket. And so
Yeah.
I feel like for the Lynx, it's probably a little bit bigger of a loss just because of the ball handling part of it and the point guard duties. But on the flip side of that, we also know how important Asia Wilson is to
Right.
the Aces, because I think, when you look at the Aces, especially from a scoring standpoint,
Right.
that's where I think the difference is too, because she is the bulk of the scoring for the Aces. You just don't see as much offense out of the Aces with the
Right.
absence of Asia in the lineup. And so
Right.
I feel like that's kind of where the separator is in terms of point production, because I would venture to say the Aces aren't going to get near what they do on the scoreboard with Asia in the lineup. But if you take away Miles, I feel like the Lynx still have enough pieces that
Yeah.
they're probably going to still, they scored 89 points in a loss without her.
Right.
So I
Right.
feel like those are the differences, is just in terms of the point production for the team.
Yeah.
But the bright spot for the Lynx is they did get Dorka Juhas back in the lineup last night. And so I think, again, welcoming her back, obviously hasn't played basketball in a couple months, but that's going to be a welcome addition. And we know Nafisa is on her return to play as well. And so I think everyone is excited for her to get back into that lineup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I've seen Dorka obviously at Ohio State, but then also at UConn, and then her impact in the WNBA. I mean, she's a floor stretcher, especially from the left side with those triples. But I think, with Nafisa back and them being whole, with Miles on the floor, with all of them, she's just going to be able to set the table up for so many other players. So for me, I'm just very curious to see what that mix looks like once everyone is back and 100% ready to go. But another player who was missing was Caitlin Clark from Indiana. She's been playing more off the ball, right? When they were matched up with Las Vegas, you saw Kelsey Mitchell being magical yet again. I mean, she had just under 30 points yet again for this team. And she's been playing more as the primary basketball handler for them. But I think someone said this during the game. I think it may have been Holly Rowe on a report or something. But she said that Steph White said, hey, listen, we don't want you to run a play. We want you to make a play. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. Because I think people they misunderstand that coaches want you to come down and run a play every time. I want you to come down and run a play, but if you're standing there looking at me, I'm like, run two, like, okay, like, run something. But you got to be able to make a read. It's a feel. Basketball is very it's artistic. It's very poetry in motion. It's very, just go. Right. And we'll figure it out later kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, there is structure and you have plays. And there were times where I would lay off and let the players call the play. Like, don't look over here. I'm like, you're the point guard. You call the play. What do you see? Like, make a play. And they got so much more confidence because they were making the call and they made the read. Like, I think if we run this, we could really punish that back cut. I'm like, call it out. You call it. You call it. And there's just a handing over of the keys in that way. So, without Caitlin Clark on the floor, excuse me, but then with Kelsey Mitchell being able to come out not only as a playmaker with the basketball in her hands, but as a primary scorer as well in the absence of Clark. What have you seen with that dynamic for the Indiana Fever to come out and without a star player, just like Las Vegas didn't have one with Asia Wilson being out? What did you see that Indiana was able to do with that not being on the court in terms of production with Clark's numbers?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the Fever are somewhat used to not having Clark on the court just because of her extended absence last season. And so I feel like Kelsey Mitchell is very, very comfortable in that spot, knowing, okay, I need to make plays, I need to score baskets, I need to do this, because she had to do that for the majority of last season. And so I think that's more of a seamless transition there because they played so many games without her last year. And it's essentially the same lineup, a few different pieces here and there, but the main core of who was playing for them outside of, the guards they had to sign because it was injury after injury last year. But when you still have Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell on the floor for the Fever, two people who can score the ball pretty consistently, I think they just are in a better spot than, say, the Aces without Asia Wilson, because again, they've had to do that for a majority of the season last year. So I felt like that was just for the Fever, they've kind of have been there, done that. And so it was a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly there. And hers is a back injury, so that's just kind of hard to gauge. And I think I've heard day to day for her as well. I listened to some of the pre-practice or post-practice scrums with the coaches and players. So just day to day, just seeing how she's maintaining it. I think yesterday she was trying to practice. So I didn't get like the update today or this morning on it, but I did hear Steph White say she was going to try to go yesterday, like full on fives. I say fives, 5-on-5, just to get some kind of synergy and get the sweat going a little bit. So we'll see on that. But I know with it being the 30-year anniversary for the WNBA, not only have they dug way back into the archives, bringing a lot of players back into the mix. I just saw Cheryl Miller out in LA, loving up on the Sparks and just pouring back into the game as always. But they're doing it in the broadcast booth as well, with Roberts and Geno Auriemma pairing up. I believe Holly Rose on the sideline with that crew. What do you think of that? And 30 years, the nostalgia is shining through, no?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be incredible. I hope we get Geno unfiltered on the broadcast crew. He always has a lot of really good little snippets of things to say, and so obviously a genius in the basketball space. So definitely looking forward to that because again, we're honoring legends that have come through the game. And I know I saw something a couple of weeks ago. I think someone asked Paige what Geno would be saying, and she said, probably pointing out everything that I do wrong. And so I'm excited to hear if that actually happens. But obviously, what are your thoughts? Obviously, being in the broadcasting and just being able to sit and, watch that.
Yeah, well, it's so crazy because these basketball circles, the more I live, this is what my dad told me, rest in peace. He said, keep living because you'll see why everything's connected. And boy, was he right, because I tell you what, so Geno Auriemma, he recruited me when I was in high school. So that's like 100% full circle. And then for that reason, and then Robin Roberts, she was the first Black woman I saw doing sports on ESPN, calling games as a play-by-play, right? I mean, I saw a lot of analysts and everything like that. Cheryl Miller was the first one I saw called one of our games when I was playing at Maryland in the Final Four, and Cheryl Miller was over there calling the game. So it's just nuts. So just to be able to see someone like Robin Roberts, right, who continued to pour into the game, and I know she's with Good Morning America now, but I just remember interviewing her when I was first starting out in broadcasting when she would come through in DC. Man, Brittany, I'm standing there like, oh my God. I'm like, 3, 2, 1. Robin Roberts, how are you? Like, I was very like, I was very, oh my God. But I did it. But I saw her subsequently many times after that, the Final Fours and everything. And I would just talk to her. And I think I was coaching at Maryland. I gave her one of my business cards from Maryland when you had the cards, I felt, like I would a little, shebang, just hand that over to her. And I never thought she would use it, but there was a recruit on campus and I'm walking across campus and this number is calling me. I was like, man, who's on my cell phone? I answered it. Hey, Christy, it's Robin Roberts. And I stopped cold in the middle of campus at Maryland. And I was like, oh, hi, how are you? Then I'm like, what? And she was like, I was just going through my desk and found your card. I just wanted to reach out and see how things were going. And I'm like, I'm done for the week. I was mentally and emotionally laid out in the grass right there. But just stuff like that. And it wasn't that, she didn't like call to say, hey, here's this job or, hey, here's this connection. But she was caring about me as a person. Do you know how far that went? And just for me, like, oh my God, like I matter. And not that I thought I didn't or whatever, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like I didn't give her my card for her to get me a job. I gave her my card because I revered her, respected her. And, if by chance you're digging through your desk and my card pops up, give me a call and check on me without me saying that. But for her to do that, I still, and I saw her at the Final Four, last year, I believe, actually 2 years ago. And I saw her there and I hadn't spoken to her in a while. And it was just, I was the same, young reporter standing there talking to her in the bowels of the arena at the Final Four. And she's like, how's everything going? How are you? And I'm like, oh, good, but it's just like she's checking on me as a person and not as a broadcaster, but she's going to be back in that broadcast booth where she's just been a savant and just a mesmerizer with her words. But for me, she's always going to be special just because she made me feel special, and seen. She saw me, Brittany. She saw me. And I'll never
and that's kind of a summation of the beauty of sport, though, is relationship, and that's what so many people love about it. And so I think your story is a really good way to portray that, because that's why people love to get into sports and play it and be on teams, is because of the relationship. So thank you for sharing that story, because that's really cool. But the basketball game is also going to be really good too. So I'm excited. Obviously a lot of UConn flavor in that basketball game. So definitely one that I know, again, in the standings, we're talking about that any given night. It is jam-packed in there. And so that Wings Liberty game tonight is going to be really good.
It is. And what makes me chuckle a little bit is because, AZ Fide, I believe she leads all rookies in blocks now. And I know that, Geno, as a senior, I know he was on AZ, to play his defense. So I'm sure that's going to come up. But she's always been right there, But to have like the blocks, Lee, I think she has 20 something blocks. So far this season, we're not even halfway through. We're not even at the All-Star break yet. So for her to be where she needs to be on defense at the professional level, and Geno's on the game, I'm here for it. And then Stewie on the other side of it, and obviously Paige. But I hope I want it to be a great game, which it will be. I can already tell. Just statistically very even across the board. New York has a little more size, but I think just tactically speaking, they like to play the game the same way. They want to get up and down. They would love to attack the paint. They love like the Princeton style, lull you to sleep and then slice cut you on the back door. But they play a lot of the same schemes offensively. So I'm going to be really intrigued to see that. But I also want to see, like, I want Paige and Stewie to be mic'd up. I mean, I don't know how they're going to run it. I think Beth Mowens is also on the call, but I want to see, like, I want to let them, have fun. I want them to unpack maybe some older footage of maybe Rebecca Lobo or something. I don't know. But I just think I want them to have fun too. I want it to be a great game, but I also want to, I want to see some back and forth, and I want to laugh, darn it. I want to laugh tonight at some point, just about. So, like you said, Geno unfiltered, but I also want to see Paige and AZ and Stewie. I want to see them unfiltered too, and just have fun in the moment to have Geno over there, but also Robin Roberts. I just think it's such a great mix and a great opportunity to celebrate the 30 years of the league, to go back in the booth with who started in the booth with the league.
Yeah, absolutely. One that everybody should be seated down in their seats for, because it's going to be a good game. But like you said, I hope the entertainment value is there as well.
Yeah. So that game comes on. Remind the people, because you have have it all in front of you. What time?
Yep, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So I always feel for you East Coast people, because I always say it's the worst time zone for sports. But I'm a Central girl, so 7 o'clock's a perfect start, because that gets me in bed on time.
Yeah, I'm a night owl. I don't really sleep much, so it's fine. Like, we could be up till 1, 2 o'clock. It doesn't matter. Whatever. I got on midnight last night. So.
Then you'll get the 10 o'clock Eastern Sky Mercury game, which we wanted to circle back to the Sky here and just touch on the Sky and Skylar Diggins, and just give us your thoughts on this situation. Obviously, Skylar came out on Instagram yesterday. Learned of her benching or moving to the bench, and Christy, what do you think, and just the Sky in general?
Yeah, I mean, with Rakia Jackson going down, I think, we're talking about the injuries to key players across the league, right? And just being out, not for the season or anything, but with Rakia's being for the season. I mean, what a huge impact that has been for the team that pretty much was recreating itself. I think that's where the frustration started, just across the board. Just how now we just figured out how to play with one another out here, and we're just getting the chemistry built, and then Rakia goes down. So then now, okay, crumble that up, trash it, and restart, but we're already playing games. So now our practices are in essence our games, so we're just learning and trying to unpack things. But I think, that could be a very frustrating thing, right? Especially for players that are seasoned vets. You have Natasha Cloud there, Elizabeth Williams, right? And Skylar Diggins, man, they won a lot of games in the league now, and in college they're going to be started. So it's probably frustrating to like stop starting in terms of wins, losses. Now, in terms of starting or coming off the bench, that's something different. And, as an athlete, there's an ego built in. And I'm saying that in the best way. You're supposed to have that. You're supposed to have that. I have it. I still have it. I don't even play anymore. I have it. Like, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna shoot it, and then I'm gonna be sore the next day, Lord. But I'm gonna do it because because the way my mind is built, it never goes away. So just to let everybody know, that never goes away. So you'll always have that competitive edge that fuels you, regardless of your age, team, or if you're just shooting, or if the ball rolls to you like it did that time, and I just had to go and shoot a bunch of them. But I think for Skylar, I know that there's frustration there, and this isn't like new, because didn't she say, like, that's a Tyler Marsh question in terms of what they were running on offense? And I'm fine with that, right? Like, she's a pro. She's treated it professionally, as she said. And she said, I haven't said much. I've been really good. Like, I'm holding. So I'm like, is there something down the pike here that you're going to say? That's kind of how I heard it. And I'm not mad at that. 10 toes, like, say it, like, if that's what it is. But also, as a coach, Tyler Marsh said, whatever we said to one another, that's between us. So I respect that from Tyler Marsh. As a former coach, I don't want, everybody's not allowed in the locker room for a reason. For a reason. And then they have a cutoff time, and that's it for the locker room, because that is a sacred space for the team. So I understand. So whatever it is that's going on, and whatever the yapping between the two of them or the team and whatever is happening, they need to go and get it together. Like,
Yep.
and that's fine. So for Skylar not to divulge exactly what it was, that's fine. And I think that's how it should be. But she's like, hey, listen, I've been very good. And I'm like, oh, period. Okay, so what's coming up? Like something. But then also Tyler's like, he doesn't owe us what they're talking about in the locker room. And I respect that too. So I respect both sides of it. But at the same time, it kind of reminded me of AI. And when I say AI now, it's not the computer thing, it's Allen Iverson. When he said, what MVP comes off the bench? What starter do comes off the bench? So again, there's like this athletic competitive ego that you're supposed to have that I love, that everyone's still going to have that. I don't care how old they are. If they're 100 years old, they're still going to have that, period. So I understand like that notion of it, to take that hit. I mean, she's been a starter for, in essence, 10 years. Like she's coming on the court after the ACL. And then I think she came off the bench a couple times as she was getting, the minutes restriction together. But that was 2016. She's an Olympian and a gold medalist. And a mom of two. I'm an advocate for all the mommies. But, she's gone through a lot, right?
Yep.
And it's not an excuse per se. It's just the reality of it. But she, to my point, didn't divulge, which she didn't owe us that. And neither does Tyler Marsh.
Right.
But the fact that she's alerting that there's something going on, and he did too. I just hope they go in the locker room, both of them, all of them, the team, the coaches, and they go in there and they iron that thing out, right? And they do their best. Yes, they got one hand tied behind their back without Rakia Jackson. And I get that, and that's frustrating. But you've got to continue to try to find a way. And you got to find a way together. And again, to your point, it's the beauty of sports is that you try to figure it out. And, as frustrating as that could be, because everybody's competitive in that locker room. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to try to, get it right. So, I mean, I'm not mad that she did it. And I'm also not mad that Tyler said what I said it to her. And I don't need to say it to you. So I'm kind of like, hey, well then y'all go here and get it together, right?
Yep.
And let's move forward with it. But I'm not mad at her for that. I'm not mad at Tyler for that. But obviously there are things that need to be fixed in the locker room, and that's where they need to go to do that.
Yeah, well, and I think it'll be interesting to see how the storyline develops over the next couple of weeks. With the Sky are 6-14, they're not winning as many games as obviously they should. The loss of Rakia Jackson, a big reason for that. Yeah. I think probably the frustration, I would believe, maybe is some from Skylar would be she chose to sign with the Sky. Probably not with the understanding of I would eventually be coming off the bench when Courtney Vandersloot is healthy or whatever that conversation was. I can't imagine that's what was said. And so I think maybe that could be where the frustration is mounting. The losses certainly. And I think the kind of maybe the big reason that all is happening, I think you could envision Vandersloot and Diggins playing on the floor together, but Sydney Taylor kind of came out of nowhere. And so when you have a player like that, I don't think, it's, hey, we're going to relegate her to the bench when she is producing. And so that's what I think, that dynamic, it's going to be interesting what the next couple of weeks look like. But if I'm Skylar Diggins, my frustration would be, hey, I chose to sign with the Sky. And I don't think that was probably a conversation that was had. If I am the person in the room with her, I have no idea if that was a conversation. But from my point of view, if I'm a free agent and I'm Skylar Diggins on the open market, I'm probably not picking a place where, halfway through the season, you're going to be moved to the bench. That probably was not a conversation that was had.
That's probably not. No. And I heard, Courtney Vandersloot had a press conference. I think it was after a game recently. And she said, hey, like to your point, like I wouldn't mind playing alongside of her. She could shoot the ball. Like there are things that she's dynamic with, and you could play her off the ball. She doesn't have to be the point guard. Like Skylar doesn't have to be the PG one out there. She could be the, shooting guard one instead. But I don't know. I didn't even consider that. as being something that could have possibly been the thing to relegate her to the bench with Sloot coming back healthy. You just really put a little log on the fire in my brain there on that one, because I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, they weren't winning. They were trying to do something different, trying to find something new. But I wasn't even thinking that it was Sloot, coming back that made that Ferris wheel seat exited and taken. Anywho, that's a lot to think about right there. But I know Courtney Vandersloot. I mean, she's a pro too. She understands it. And she understands that too, probably from the perspective of Skylar Diggins in this whole situation. Like, she knows, what that competitive ego is, as she should, right? I just think it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, especially after the All-Star break that is also in Chicago. I think that's going to be an intriguing team to watch and see if they can figure it out. And will that mount to, 20 wins? I don't know. But are they playing better, right? Do they look like they have good chemistry? Is Skylar coming back into the starting lineup? I mean, these are the things that remain to be seen. And if she comes back to the starting lineup, or when she comes back to the starting lineup, is she PG1 or SG1? Is she shooting guard one? So I think there's a lot of things that remain to be seen. But with Sydney doing what she's doing, I mean, she has just been fantastic. Definitely an all rookie player. I mean, the consistency for me as a rookie, that is always something that raises my eyebrow, because that's not easy to jump into the league and then stay consistent, because teams scheme against you. And now it's like, oh, I got to counter to the counter, and then counter that too, because they're going to take your strengths away. But even with that, Sydney Cook's she's been ready to, just fire up whenever she can, especially her defensive prowess too is top tier for them as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So those are the games tonight. We got a doubleheader. The booth will be filled with Geno and Robin. I can't wait for that. Is there anything else that's standing out for you, WNBA story wise, for this week or moving forward for the rest of the week?
I think the All-Star reserves are going to be announced tonight, so that'll be fun to talk about the rest of the week. There'll be, I'm sure, a lot of very unbiased opinions about who makes those teams, as always, Christy. But I think, like we've said the whole episode, the league is just, you never know on any given night. If you look at the standings, they are so compact, and it's going to be really, I think, that way the rest of the year. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing what some of maybe these bottom teams, if they get some momentum, like you said, could this guy get that momentum to kind of climb the standings, or the Storm, or so there's so many different storylines, but it's just I think every night we just don't know what we're going to get, which is the beauty of it.
No question. And with Connecticut beating Minnesota, like it's like you just have to be ready to go every single night. But wow, I love that we don't know night in, night out what's going to happen, because we love watching. So I did want to say this because I saw it this morning before we go, on the Together X Instagram page or whatever they had. I guess they're doing like a podcast or something over there too. But I love that there's all this chatter about women in sports, but women's basketball, because there's just so much to dissect and discover, like what you were talking about, just the levels and layers to it. And I know it's a different, podcast network. I mean, I don't. I mean, I care, but I love the fact that there's so much of a discussion about women in sports. So I'm not, gatekeeping. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a hater. So I love the fact that the game and the games that women are playing athletically are being dissected, discussed, and just out in the forefront. So I'm just going to keep pushing, anytime I hear, see, or whatever, I'm saying it because it's been a long time coming. So I'm just proud of where women are right now in sports, in all realms, not just on the court, but coaches, just the broadcasters, producers, like everyone is playing a role in lifting the game and continue to grow it. So I'm just excited for where the game is now in 30 years of the league, but wow, it's so much more ahead because of the momentum that is continuing to be stirred up and discussed. So that's why I am with it. Brittany, what's your take on all of that and just the vibe of not just the W, but just in general for women in sports at this juncture of life?
Well, I think if you know, would have asked Robin Roberts and Geno Auriemma on the broadcast in 1997 if they imagined where women's basketball especially is now, I don't know if they would have predicted that. And so I think that would be even a fun question for them to answer on the broadcast, just because think about all that they have seen and the growth and the change. And so when you talk about, you know, the podcasts plural like that are talking about the game on a daily basis, we are very, very grateful for where it is, where it's going, the growth and the support and the investment, because again, women in sport is where it's at. I will always say that. Like, I enjoyed watching the U.S. men's national team, but as I said to my wife last night, I said, now I can get back to my regularly scheduled U.S. women's national team soccer, because they're they've won 4 World Cups, and that's what I love to follow. And I'm not hating on the men, but man, like, women in sport is just, for me, I love to continue to see the growth of it, and it just keeps elevating.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you know, the Olympic women's basketball team, 8 consecutive gold medals. So you're preaching to the choir, is what my dad used to say. Like, they already
Yep,
they're good. Like, you don't need to. I'm right
exactly.
with you. I'm right with you. No, 100%, 100%, 10 toes. It's just exciting time. So I know that when the game comes on at 8 o'clock, I am going to be perched with my feet up on the couch, and I'm going to be cheering for the game to continue to be the star and for the nostalgia of it all. And I do hope that someone asked about if they thought that this would unpack the way it has unpacked over the 30 years of the W. So I think that's going to be fun. I did have 2 parting shots, if you will. The Mystics last night, they inducted Monique Curry into the Washington Mystics Hall of Fame. DMVer played at Bullis High School and, of course, Duke. But Crystal Langhorne was there to kind of MC the moment at halftime, and it was just the most lovely moment. So if you have a second to take a peek at that, her speech was magnificent, and she said she used to wait outside of the parking garage for the Mystics to come out. And there's a red light at the top of the hill. And, you know, sometimes it would be red and the players would have to stop. And they roll down the window.
Yep.
And she's like 13, 14 years old, like, hey, you know, like saying hi to the players. And she said this one particular thing. And if you don't get it, I'm just going to just share this one little part because I thought it was so sweet. And it goes to what we were talking about the 30-year anniversary. Oh, Lord, I thought I could get through it, but I'm okay. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So she said there was one time they were waiting and waiting. Her mom was calling her like, where are you guys? And she's with her sister. And she was like, well, we've been here an hour and a half. Like, just give us 30 more minutes. So 2 hours pretty much after the game, right? They're standing there waiting, probably in the summer heat. Car comes up the hill to leave the garage here in DC, and the light was red. And she gets excited for the red light. She's like, oh, it's red. The window rolls down, and it's Nikki McCray. Sorry. Of course, you know, she lost her battle with breast cancer a few years ago. And so Nikki McCray reached to the back of the car to get a pair of shoe, well, actually one shoe, and handed it to Mo and her sister. And Mo said they're still fighting about who gets to keep that shoe to this day. But I just thought, what genuine love. And then she said when she was driving down North Capitol Street, when she was on the Mystics, oh, sorry. She said, wow, if you can see her, you can be her. And then she thought in that moment, I saw her and I am her. Oh, child, you know, I was worse last night. I'm pretty bad right now, but I was at halftime over there, like, struggle bus. But I just thought that was just so beautiful. And and she just told the right story for the right time. And rest in peace to Nikki McCrae. She was inducted into the Mystics Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, but her family was there. Her son, who's probably 12 or 13 now, her husband was there, and her family to accept for her. In her absence. So I just thought that story just really hit home for all the DC fans who remember Nikki McCrae being on the first team here in DC in '98, because the Mystics didn't start in '97; they started the very next year. And so, well, just shout out to Mo Curry on that, and to bring it a little lighter. Alicia Clark, it's her birthday today, so I just wanted to give a shout out. She's going to be with the Dallas Wings, the Wiley vet for the Wings. So I just wanted to send her a happy birthday. She was here in DC a couple times as well, but that's what I say. The AC is too cold, She's knocking
I
down
love
those
it.
threes. So I just wanted to give the little personal shout outs to those two right there. But if you have a chance to watch the whole thing, but she told it better than I did, and she didn't start crying like I did, or her voice didn't go like mine did. So she was much better. And yeah, but it was really sweet to see.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think, again, like you said, so many little kids, not just girls, but boys too, look up to players in this league. And it's moments like that, the relationship part, right? That little act of kindness and gratitude. And that's what I think changes lives. And certainly it did for Mo Curry. And, what a cool story that she could share. So definitely, if everyone has a chance to get out and watch that, little tribute, the induction, that would be well worth their time, I would imagine.
Oh, no question. And it just proves that it's true, right? When you believe in yourself because you see the representation of someone doing it. Like I told you, Cheryl Miller, like I told you, Robin Roberts, there's something to that. It does something to your spirit when you're seen by people who are living the dream that you want to also live, and then pay it back and pay it forward. I just think it's such a beautiful notion, and it never will be lost on me. Yeah, I was just very nostalgic on the way home last night, just thinking about all that, and just imagining a tiny Mo Curry and then Nikki McCrae handing her a shoe. It just, one little thing, but she saw her the same way Robin Roberts picked up that card and called me in the middle of the day randomly on a Wednesday. But that she saw me, right? In
Mhm.
that little moment, but it changes something in you, like the belief factor or the confidence, and the fact that you're being seen. And I think that's what life is all about. So, I think that's a great way to end it, Brittany. Oh
I
my
agree.
goodness. Oh my gosh. Always a pleasure to speak and chop it up with you, my friend, especially about hoops, but also about life too, and the connectivity
Absolutely.
there. It's just it's a beautiful life. So we
Yes.
appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast network. And be back. Thank you so much for being the ultimate and consummate producer of all things here with us for Brittany Carver. I am Christy Winter Scott, and we will see you next time.
See ya.